Hey man,
Oh man,
how you doing?
Pete,
Good to see you.
you too. Man, it's been a while. I guess it hasn't been terribly long, but still.
So yeah, it feels like a long time for sure because we've like connected really quickly over the past couple months, so we haven't like really caught up.
Yeah. No, I'm glad when I reached out that you said that you were available for today. Which I'm really glad you're available because 10 minutes ago, Safe gave me a call and Safe said, "Hey, I'm babysitting my little brother right now unexpectedly, and would it be better if I just joined the call and was a little distracted or just wait till next week?" And I said, "I think me and Pete can handle it tonight." So,
Nice. Yeah, I'm stoked that you asked me to come on, man. It's exciting.
yeah, no, I appreciate you. I think maybe I told you a little bit about the idea before, and I reached out to Safe, I reached out to a few other people that I knew, and then a lot of people in the past few weeks have reached out
Mhm.
about wanting to be involved. And, this kind of all came together because I was talking to a few players about just the psychological side of the game and how, there's so many resources for players that like want to get to their goal
Yeah,
and to help them get there, whether it be even like personal training or, like life coaches and nutritionists and people that help you along the way. But then like once you achieve your goals or even at towards the end of your journey, then like what happens? Like you achieve your goals, how do you reset your goals? And a lot of that then kind of expanded to conversations about the sides of the game that aren't necessarily always talked
mhm.
about playing on teams and relationships with other players or lack of playing time, and it's just like a bunch of things that like mess with your head that you might not even really even think about as part of a sport when you like decide what school you're going to go to or what team you're going to play on. Some of this stuff doesn't really actually like hit you until you actually go through it. So it hasn't
Yeah.
really become.
Funny enough, most of the time it's that stuff that like impacts your performance more than your actual abilities.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
just because like you're all up in your head and yeah, and then as just like being a trainer that trained athletes for a while, you're right, it's just this stuff's never talked about, it's never focused on, it's just about speed, quickness, strength, technical abilities and stuff, and then everything else is completely neglected. So I think this is brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of people over the past few weeks that have reached out and have expressed desire to like share some of their stories as well. And
Mhm.
I know that I reached out to you because I've always found your story just really impressive, and being able to go through and endure not just what you went through on the field with injuries, but off the field as well, um, is just incredible. And I guess a little bit of background, Pete, if you want to kind of introduce yourself and just, I mean, give like a brief, like 2-minute rundown of your soccer career slash education, and we can go from there.
Yeah, so I, grew up playing soccer my whole life, I guess rec leagues and stuff, and never really took it seriously until like my sophomore year of high school was the first time I actually played legit club, towards the end of my sophomore year. And at that point, a lot of guys that were older than me on the team were looking at colleges and wanting to play in college, and they started getting recruited and committing. And I was like, shoot, that would be really cool, but I'm not good enough. And I just remember asking a bunch of them one time at a practice, like, you guys think if I started club earlier, I would have been good enough to play in college like you guys? They're like, yeah, oh, for sure. And then I was like, why can't I just try really hard right now for the next year and a half and see what happens? And three of the guys on my high school team ended up going to play at a school, and that's one I wanted to go to. So worked really hard, ended up getting recruited. Um, Played there for 2 years, took a year off, and that's when you and I kind of became friends, started training together, playing together a little bit. Kind of took me under your wing, and finished out my last 2 years up at a school in Boston. In the summers playing with Baltimore Kings U23s, and then when I graduated, signed with the pro team, and then soccer kind of ended pretty abruptly for me after that because of some health stuff. But yeah, I went to college, marketing major, nothing special, but yeah, that's about it.
Pete, you definitely undersell yourself in a lot of your abilities and things that you've accomplished over the past few years. So, Pete briefly mentioned that I met him in between his 2 college stints. And I had actually met Pete when he was a senior in high school, even before then. And I was playing futsal. I was in college.
Yeah, the beard.
And towards the end, yeah, I had the beard, which I recently grew back out. I don't know if you saw pictures and video of me, but like I had a beard like down to here a couple weeks ago. My wife was a big reason why I don't have it. But at the same point, it was my decision because it was getting hot outside, getting warmer, and when it gets hot and you have all that facial hair, it just kind of like poofs
Lost
out.
the baby in it 1 or 2 times, maybe.
Yeah, I was worried my son wouldn't know who I was when I shaved. Yeah, when I was in college, that was the first time I kind of grew out my beard. I was a junior in college, and I was in the off season playing futsal, and I played in this futsal tournament in Virginia, and I met Pete playing on my team. I didn't really know many of the players on the team. I knew a few, but I remember Pete. I had maybe like a brief conversation with him over the weekend, and then that was it. And Pete went on to play throughout high school and went to play D3 college soccer. And I ran into him in the off season of his first stint in college, and I didn't really know much about him, and our relationship definitely grew from there. But Pete, if you kind of want to share rather than me like kind of give away the story here,
Yeah.
when I met you, Pete, you didn't really want to, like, soccer really wasn't your thing. Like, it kind of seemed like you had maybe not given up on soccer, but didn't necessarily have the same passion for soccer as you used to.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you actually met me. My junior year, I ended up leaving the first day of classes.
You left college.
Yeah, the first day. So end of preseason, first day of classes. I came home, wasn't expecting to, and that's when I started working out at LA Fitness. And it was just such a weird day because I remember picking up just a workout shirt and put it on. It had that college name on it. And I was like, I'm so sick of people asking me if I go here. And I took it off, threw it back in the drawer, and I was like, I already grabbed it, and I put it back on. And I was stretching in front of the mirrors like before a workout, and you were looking at me because you were also stretching. I was like, this guy looks really familiar, but
Oh,
you didn't
that's
have.
a good-looking guy over here.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, he's a stud. And then you were like, do you go to that school? And I was like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. This is why I didn't want to wear it. And I was like, oh yeah, I just left. And you knew all about it. And we started talking, and that's when you started telling me about, you're like, hey, I'm playing up with this pro team in Philly. I played in college, and then we kind of made the connection. Oh, we played in a tournament together like 6 or 7 years ago. And yeah, you're right. I was kind of really mad at soccer at that time. I was still like training, but out of spite. And I just remember you telling me, you're like, hey, I'd love to train with you sometimes because that basketball court was like open in the mornings. And we decided to meet up. I was like, yeah, I'm a bit of an early bird. And I think it was like 2 days after that, we decided to train at 5 a.m. there together. And you kicked my butt, and just became a thing. Like almost every morning, we just got up at 4 and met up at 5, and just got a lot of touches in for a couple hours, and it was awesome. And,
Yeah.
and that definitely did help me a lot, actually, with just kind of my mindset about the sport. Like that slowly started to to bring me back in some ways, and just kind of give me hope because I was having fun. And then you kind of brought me up to play with your team, and that brought some confidence back. I was like, oh, I can hang with these guys. And so that actually did a lot for me going forward because, yeah, I did want to continue playing in college after I left, but I also wasn't sure because I was just so mad. So yeah, that was like a huge deal for me.
Yeah, I know. When I first met you, well, I guess the second time I met you,
Yeah.
when we're at the gym, I just to give some background from my perspective of that encounter, I never work out midday because I have so many things going on. But I went to go get a membership at LA Fitness, and I guess I had a break in our schedule or something, and I decided to head on up to the gym and go to LA Fitness. And my dad was a member of LA Fitness back when I was he lived in Dallas, and my dad he had got me a membership, so I was kind of used to the LA Fitness environment. LA Fitness had a basketball gym, and the first thing I thought of, I was like, man, there's probably no one here in the mornings. I can come here and train in the basketball gym and get some touches in. So I was like, all right, all right. And they had a pool and a hot tub and sauna, and I was like, like it's a nice looking gym. All right, I'm kind of sold. So I went in there at a time I don't normally go in, and I went in to get my membership, and I was already in soccer clothes, and it was actually Bobby, I think, and Bobby's like, hey, like, do you want to get a workout in? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I like went and just like I got a workout in,
Mhm.
and the first thing I normally do before I start working out is I'll go and I'll get a good stretch in over by the mirrors, maybe ride the bike for a little bit first. And like it's always nice to like when you're at the gym and you look in the mirrors and you like see yourself and you're stretching.
Yeah.
And I go over there and I notice like it's rare to like go to a gym and like see other like soccer players there at times, especially like in the area I grew up and maybe me not know this person. I knew a lot of the players around. But he looked around, a little younger than me, but my age still, and I saw he was wearing a college soccer shirt on. I was like, I'm gonna go up and talk to him. So, we started the conversation as Pete said, and he mentioned that he had played college soccer and was kind of in limbo right now, and said that he was working. I believe you're working construction or like landscaping.
Yeah, it was a construction over on the Eastern Shore. I drive across the bridge every day with a buddy, and
Yeah.
yeah, I was
So
lost.
kind of just like he was like, yeah, like I'm just like, I think I asked her like, what are you doing now? And you're like, I'm just working. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, if you want to work out, like I usually like I've thrown this offer out to like at least like dozens of people. I said, hey, like if you work out, like I try to get here early in the mornings. I don't always make it here because I had a daughter, right? And I think she was less than 1 year old, 1 year old daughter.
Yeah.
I was like, I can, um, I was like, I will be here at 5 a.m. Usually to work out. That's when the gym opens.
Mhm.
Try to get my workout in early. If you ever want to come train with me, I don't know your skill level, but I was like, if you want to come train, like that would give me motivation to come wake up.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, yeah, I'll be there. And like normally when people say like I'll be there, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, yep, or we'll see. I'm expecting that text early in the morning. I like got there the next morning and he was like outside waiting in the cold. I was like, really? I was like, okay. And we started training, and I instantly noticed. I was like, this is a technical player, um, but you just weren't in shape. And I was like, this guy could definitely still play.
Yeah.
And I was just keeping him in the loop of all my plans and things that I wanted to do after soccer, and we kind of just inspired each other. Where I mean, you mentioned that you were inspired by just being able to come, and I invited him to come train with my pro team at the time, and the coach of my team said, "Yeah, bring him." And he came and trained, and he did great. Like, didn't lose the ball at all, and just was a good player. And people were coming up to him asking him like where he played. He's like, "Yeah, like I don't really play anywhere. I used to play in college for 2 years." And they're like, "Really?" So, seeing that, at least to me, that seemed like that like boosted your confidence like tenfold. And then, that summer was when we had the first summer of the U23 Kings stuff, and you were around through that, and ended up transferring. he ended up just meeting a mutual connection and transferred to a school. And um, I guess from there, you finished out, graduated, was a captain of the team and impact player, and um, it was something that like I always looked at, and I still value to this day our relationship and help building on each other in a time where I was going through a lot of transition in my personal life, and you were going a lot in yours. We kind of had that mutual, not crisis, but mutual like moment where we
Yeah.
were like we kind of needed each other in order to
Yeah.
keep going. So I really appreciate, like, I'm sure you've helped me out more than you even know, being able to just continue pushing through and going towards different goals that I had. So, one thing that I remember talking to you about, you don't have to share too much detail. I plan on sharing a little bit about my story too, but, you know, um, one thing I wanted to kind of touch on was just in terms of not playing, in terms of, when you play for a team. And I know for me, like I'll share a little about myself first, maybe that'll help. But I played at a smaller D3 school in Baltimore called Stevenson. I didn't start taking soccer seriously um, until my junior year of high school. Like I was a baseball, basketball guy too. And I realized the end of my junior year, I was like, yeah, maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to play this in college. I was like, baseball was my 365 sport that I played all the time, but I had a good high school soccer season that year, my junior year, and scored a bunch of goals. And I was just an athlete. Like I would just score a lot of headers. Um, I would score like tap ins or like really ugly goals or just like run through players. They like put the ball over top and I just run through and like the guy off the ball and score. Just blast as hard as I could, zero
Yeah.
skill whatsoever. I probably couldn't juggle the ball more than like 10 or 15 times. And I was just an athlete, just scoring all these goals. They put the ball in the box. We figured they put like 50 balls in the box. I'd have at least one in, right?
Yeah.
So I had a successful junior year, and I started taking soccer seriously. Well, kind of seriously. I joined a club team, not the best club team, but I started playing club soccer. I remember I decided I was kind of late in the game, even back then, to get recruited. So I was talking to a few schools, a few like small D1, a few like local D3, and I decided to stay local in the Baltimore area and went to Stevenson University. At the time, it was Villa Julie College. And I had some friends I knew that were going there, some players that played on my club team that were going there too. So it just made sense to stay local. And, I was used to being the guy. I was used to being like all play like revolved around me. I either play up top as the forward that they're playing balls through to and scoring goals. And, I remember going to college and it was 2.5, 3 weeks before I ended up going into my freshman year. I broke two toes. I broke my, if this was my left foot, I broke this toe and then I fractured like these two.
Yikes.
And like, it was like 2.5, 3 weeks before the preseason was about to start. So like I literally didn't do anything those 3 weeks before just so I didn't like end up hurting myself and compounding the injury. So I showed up the preseason and I was like towards the end of the pack and all the fitness drills, like just wasn't like all the way there because I was a freshman, a new environment. And I think that kind of just laid a negative first impression on like even like players and coaches where like I wasn't the best player. I wasn't even the best version of myself. So I sat the bench a lot as a freshman. And I understood that. I understood there was a lot of freshmen that sat the bench. Some started, some played a lot, some didn't play. So I remember the end of the season, my coach had told me, he said, one of my assistants, we're going through like I asked that typical question that I feel like all players ask me even. They say, hey, like what can I improve upon as a player for next year? And the response I got from my assistant coach was, said, you know what, like, you're never going to be the fittest guy in the world. You're never going to be the fittest guy on the team, and that's okay. but there's a lot you can improve on, like the mental side of the game, and like controlling the field and knowing when to make your runs. And like I remember looking at him, I was like, it's like I've always been the fittest player on the team, but you haven't seen that. So I was like, all right, like that moment all of a sudden it clicked. And I was like, challenge accepted. And like it was the spring of my freshman year. So there's like spring season for freshmen was like you played like one tournament and then we were done. And my schedule was limited because I was taking classes and I didn't make a lot of the spring practices. So I'm sure I was like falling out of like even the coach's radar because we had a lot of guys on the team. So like that summer I was like, I gotta do something. So I tried out for a local summer team, and also me and one of my friends started up a local summer team as well. So I was playing on two teams. I was running every day, and I came into that first day of preseason. I was like, just give me the fitness drills, give it to me. And like I had to crush people. Like I didn't want to just like will come first. I wanted to lap people. I wanted to just destroy people. And like my technical ability improved a lot. I was no longer just the athlete because I was playing so much. I played a lot of pickup futsal and playing more and more and more and more than I've ever played my entire life. And then I sat the bench again. I started in a few games here or there. I don't know if they were like sympathy starts. Like sometimes like none of the starters would play, and like all the people who never play would start. And I was like, I don't know. And I got really frustrated because I was like, man, like I'm the fittest player on the team. In hindsight, just because you're the fittest player on the team does not mean that you're going to get playing time. I was like, man, I'm the fittest player on the team. How come I'm not playing? And like I was playing forward and also as an outside midfielder. And I got a couple starts. I think I started the first game of the year and started a few other games here and there. But like I was never an everyday starter. I kind of hit my stride mid-season and towards the end of the year. Me and there's a forward that I played with as well, Tyler King. He went to my college and we connected really well. And we had a good forward combination. I'd start maybe play the first 15 minutes and then get subbed out and then not play the rest of the game. I was like, what am I doing wrong? And I asked the coach and he was like, oh, you're doing your job. Just do your role. And I was like, okay, I'll accept my role and I'll keep working. But I never really played more than like 15 minutes a game, 10 minutes off the bench. And so like I went into that off season and I was like, I need to definitely improve. So I joined an even better summer team, came back, and I ran all summer. I was like, not only do I want to destroy people in fitness, not only do I want to lap people in fitness, but I want to like embarrass people. Maybe that's not how like you should like look at people on your team. And I agree. Like I came into that season, I was going through some personal things too that just kind of messed with my head. I was not necessarily. You can ask even players. Like I could guarantee I could bring players on here right now and be like, yeah, maybe Josh wasn't in the best mental state because like at that time in my life, like I was just going through a lot and I was like, man, like I used to be this like clean shaven, like fluffy hair with like the wings over your ears.
Oh, I've seen the pictures. Yeah.
That was me, right? But after that, I was like, no. I was like, so I came into preseason, I had like a beard and grew out my beard for the first time, shaved my head. And I was like, I'm going to come in trying to hurt people almost. Like, I want this job. Like, I'm competing for this job. And you should never like look at it in hindsight. Like I was not in the best mental state. And like, just to be honest, like I wasn't. And like, I honestly, I'm sorry to everyone on my team, but I was trying to hurt you. Like I wanted to play so bad. I would do anything. Like whenever the coach talked, I tried to stand right in front of him. Or like I would walk like to the field. I used to never stop by coach's office, and I stop in just real quick and be like, "Hey, coach, what time's practice today?" Knowing full well what the practice is, because I just wanted him to think of me. I wanted to be like Josh. So like destroyed everyone in the fitness. Like everyone would all go out and like do other things after practice. I'd be going to the weight room and running more. Like I was getting in like insane mileage, and I'd stay up till like 2 o'clock. I'm like biking in the gym. They're like shutting the lights off, and I'm still like biking. So they shut down the gym. Then I go to Planet Fitness because that's open up 24 hours, and I'm just still biking.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, I got this like mentality, my eyes the entire time, just like, I'm not gonna give up.
Mhm.
And so I earned the starter spot in the first game of the season as the outside mid. I thought I played decent. I thought I like probably played one of my, honestly, I thought I played one of my best college games, the first game of the season. And I just remember like going into, like, we won the game, we dominated. I think it was like 3-0 final, 3 or 5-0. And then so we had a weekend tournament away. It was in New Jersey, and I'm training with the team. We get there the day before, we're training, everything seems good. I just assume I'm a starter because I'm playing in the first team versus second team. I'm in the starting lineup, whatever. No one's told me otherwise. So like when we go to walk out with the starting 11 before the game, I noticed, like, I go over to go stand with starting 11, like I'm about to walk out, and I noticed the head coach goes over to one of the assistants and says something, and the assistant like comes over and like puts his hand on my shoulder and goes, "Hey Josh, real quick." He's like, "Hey, we're actually gonna go with another player today. Just be ready though. Be ready. Like you're gonna play a lot this game. You're gonna play." And I was just like,
Heart just
okay.
sinks.
I was like, okay. By the time I was like, all right, I'll play my role. I said, when I get on there, I'll play so well they can't take me off. Well on the field, I connected like a couple passes, high pressure, won a couple balls, and then got subbed off and didn't play the rest of the game. And we won. So like when you win, like you can't really, like when you're winning, like it's hard to complain as a player because you're like, like we're winning and I'm playing my role. I'm trying to be a team player. So go to bed that night, wake up the next day, we're playing. And it's actually at Lycoming. I don't know if you
Oh,
heard.
yeah.
So
Played them, yeah.
yeah. So like we go up there and it's the Lycoming tournament, and we end up winning the tournament. And the same game had the same next game had the same role. And went back at home again, and we won like our first 6 games, but I had the same role in every game. I wasn't starting. I would come off the bench. I would just high press for like 15 minutes, come off and sit the whole second half. So I'd like give a blow to the starter, and then sub off. And I was like, dang, like, it was getting kind of difficult. And we started off like 7-0, and we were like on the national rankings. It was like possible, like receiving votes. It wasn't top 25, but it was receiving votes. Stevenson. I was like, yeah. I was like, it's awesome. We're nationally ranked, and the team chemistry, like everyone's all happy. I'm putting on this smile, and I'm like, deep breath. I'm just like, I really have put in a lot of effort for this. And not to call out other guys on the team. I just felt like I was outworking a lot of these guys and like taking it. Like I wanted this a lot, and there are a lot of good players I was surrounded by. And one of my best friends, even to this day, Oscar, was on my team, and Oscar was coming to me and was like, "Yo, why aren't you playing? Are you hurt?" I was like, "No, I'm not hurt." And like whenever anyone come up to me and say something like that, that just made me more upset because like, don't ask me why I'm not playing. Like, don't do that right now. Like I can't. Like I'm already not in the best mental state. Don't ask me that right now. Just don't. And Oscar's like scoring like 2 goals a game, like killing it. Before the season started, we're like texting like that summer, and Oscar's like, it's gonna be me and you this year, me and you. We gotta lead. Even if we're not gonna be captains, we gotta still lead. We gotta lead. So I'm like really trying to put on this face, and like to be honest, like that was really difficult for me at that beginning of the season. We were 7-0, so you couldn't really complain.
Mhm.
And then we lost, and then we lost, and then we lost, and we went down to like 7-3, and we lost 3 games in a row. And that like high was like starting to like fade off for players on the team. Like we're losing some games we shouldn't even.
Mhm.
And I remember at that point, I was kind of at my lowest point. I remember we played against Wesley, and we lost to Wesley in Delaware. And I had the same role, only my minute. Like I wasn't the first person off the bench. I wasn't the second. Like I was like probably the 10th person off the bench, played 5-10 minutes, and didn't play the rest of the game. And I remember the entire bus ride home from Wesley. Like everyone was kind of upset we lost, but I remember like literally, I could not look at anyone else in the team. I just stared out the window the entire time. And literally people were talking to me at times and I just couldn't look at them just because I was so upset. I remember getting back home and I couldn't sleep that night. I couldn't sleep. I was just not in the right place. And like I struggled like of all my entire life. Like that was probably the toughest season for me in terms of just being mentally there. And the next day we had practice, and I've always been someone to give 100%.
Mhm.
And I went to that practice and I was walking. I couldn't do it. I don't know what it was. I hit the wall. I hit the wall. I hit it. We do sprints. Normally I'd be winning sprints, and I was jogging. If people didn't pass me the ball, I didn't make runs. I was kind of doing whatever. And I remember after practice, like it was noticeable. Like it was like I did not, like I was done. I was like, all right, like soccer's not my thing. Like, all right, I've given everything. I thought I was at the end, and then right there I was like, I'm about done with soccer. And I honestly didn't know if I was going to come back the next day. And the head coach asked me to come to his office, and he said, "Hey," he said, "What's going on?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're just not the same person." And he said, like, you hadn't been the same player. He said for weeks, and I was like, really? And knowing this now as a coach, like I'm sure my body language was awful. I'm sure it was awful leading up to that. But he was like, "You're not the same player. Like what's going on with you?" I said, "Well, I'm not. I mean, I haven't been playing, and like I thought I did. The first time, like I was never someone to complain about playing time. I hated people that complained and then got playing time because they complained. I hated that. I was like, I'm never gonna say anything about playing time. And I finally just said it. I was like, I want to play. I was like, I think I deserve to play. And he goes, well, make the starting lineup. He goes, well, what would your starting lineup be for we're playing Goucher the next day? And he said, what would your starting lineup be? And Goucher like wasn't at the time, like they didn't have the best record. And he said, what would your starting lineup be? We gave him the starting lineup. And he said, well, why didn't you put yourself in there? And I said, because I just haven't been playing. And I thought that's the starting lineup you wanted to hear. He goes, no, where would you put yourself? And we played a 3-5-2.
Mhm.
And we had 3 defenders, and the 3 defenders would never sub out. They played the entire game regardless. They played the whole 90 minutes, 80 minutes, however many college minutes they played, right? 90 minutes. And he would sub out the forwards, the wingers, the center mids, everyone else. But the 3 center backs always stayed the same. And I was a forward, right? I had played a little bit as a defender in like summer ball, but didn't really necessarily have a lot of experience. And I said, I want to play in that back 3. I want to play on the left of the 3. He said, as a defender? I said, yeah. He said, why? And I said, because you never sub out those players, and I want to play. He goes, okay. But the first time you mess up, I'm subbing you out. And we went to that game against Goucher. And I was just hungry. And I went in, and every single tackle, I went in like I wanted to break someone's leg. Every time I got the ball, I wanted to play the pass that led to a goal. And you know, like I had one of the best games of my college career that day. We won handedly 5-0, you know. So then the next game we're supposed to play was against Salisbury. And the coach pulled me over the next day at practice. He goes, hey, you played really well. He goes, I'm thinking about playing you there against Salisbury. And they were ranked like 16 in the country. And they were really good. And Salisbury was top of our conference. And like, you know, like I was like, I'll play you there, but you'll start. But the first time you mess up, I'm subbing you out. Which is like, I don't know, that's the best thing to tell a player. Even now, like
Extra pressure on, yeah.
you're right, you know, but I was like, all right. And he maybe wouldn't have. I mean, I know there were times where like some people would take a bad touch, their first touch of the game, and he'd like he's like, hey, remember there was a player on my team, Tyler King. I felt like he always got the brunt end of it too. Like he'd go in, like I remember vividly, like it was the first touch of the game. Someone played Tyler like a ball, and his first touch was a little off, and someone took it away from him. He has like points on the bench. He goes, you going for Tyler. And literally like it was like 40 seconds in the game. I was like, man, I can't mess up.
Yeah.
So we played Salisbury at home, and we beat Salisbury. And, you know, my buddy Oscar had probably one of the best games I've ever seen him play, and was just killing it, running the entire game. Not saying Oscar didn't move a lot defensively normally, but
Yeah.
a lot of the game. And I just remember it was like a party in the locker room afterwards, and I was back. I was like, this is it. And I started and played every minute of every game after that, right? Except won, and it was a weird occasion. We went to go play a team from Jersey, and all the Jersey boys started that game, which was kind of weird looking back. But you know, we really didn't lose much the rest of the year. We ended up tying in the conference championship or conference semifinals, and the other team advanced in PKs. And then we won the ECAC tournament, which is like the kind of like the rejects of the NCAA tournament. We won that. And I remember there's this moment where I saw in college soccer the time ticks down, 3, 2, 1. When it reaches 0, like it's done. Like there's no extra time or anything.
Yeah.
And it hit that point, and I remember putting my bending over. I remember watching the clock trickle out. We were winning 3-1 in the championship game, and I remember putting my hands on my knees and bending over. We had won. I remember just like standing there, and I blacked out. And I was just like, I'd put so much energy and so much time into that season and had exhausted myself, where like I honestly like didn't leave my bed for a few days after that tournament. But you know, the game was over and everyone's celebrating with family and friends, and they're passing the trophy around, taking pictures, and I was involved in some of the pictures, right? But I remember like looking around and just going back to the locker room, and I cried my eyes out. And I cried and I cried, and I was so just like done. Like I gave everything. Like I couldn't. When you say like leave everything on the field, I left everything on the field, and that was just the culmination of everything. And it was probably like the first time in my life that I had like that experience of like being that underdog and finally like achieving what you had set out to do. And I cried and I cried. And it was kind of like, it was a lonely feeling where I was like, I felt like I was kind of alone. And you know, everyone was celebrating with family. And, you know, my grandparents came and watched the game and I said bye to them. But like, it was so different. Like I cried my eyes out and I was so upset. I remember driving home and I didn't attend classes. I didn't leave my bed for like a few days. I remember taking a month or so off of soccer. So knowing that, and then like seeing that you're kind of in a space where like, so you were in college, like fast forward, I don't know, 5 years or 4 years later, right? And now like I meet you and you're like, yeah, I don't know if I want to play soccer anymore. I had a negative experience.
Yeah.
Like, come train.
Yeah.
And I've shared this story with you before, you know, but like, I remember you went through an entirely different experience, but at the same time, like, I know you weren't playing, and I know that was maybe one of the biggest frustrations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's definitely a lot of similarities there. And I guess my personal experience, yeah, just kind of building up to, like I said, 3 guys that I went to high school with, good friends. I mean, one of the guys' dads owned a construction and landscaping company, so we were always working together, playing together. I played club with them, and they all went to this one school. And I remember my junior year, I went out for a game. Only one of them was there at that point, but
Junior year of high school.
Yeah. And it was his freshman year, and the other 2 were gonna follow the next year and come up, but he was the only one there so far. And I remember just watching them warm up, and I was like, this is where I want to go. And it was one of those things you just knew. And so going into junior and senior year, I was just training my butt off. I was like, I just need to get good enough for college, and ended up getting like recruited by some other schools and didn't apply to another college. You know, I talked to the coaches, didn't go up for a recruiting trip. I was so set on this one school. I was like, I don't care. This is the only place I want to go. And then I had an emergency surgery like 2 months before I was supposed to go up on a recruiting trip. And so I was out for a while, and I was fit at that time before the surgery. I was ready to go. And so as soon as I healed up enough, probably not enough to be training again, but I just remember in high school, I actually built half of our basement's unfinished. And I remember when I decided I wanted to play college soccer, I went to Home Depot and I bought a bunch of cinder blocks. And then I called my dad and I was already like on the way home, and I called my dad and I was like, hey, can I build a wall? He was like, what do you mean? And I was like, in the basement, I want to work on like my first touch and turns and stuff like that. And he was like, yeah, I guess. I was like, cool, because I know Home Depot has like cinder blocks and stuff. I already had it in the car, and he gave me the okay. And I came home and I built a wall. And so uh, to get ready, it was just like waking up at 5:30 before school and just like hitting the wall and doing cone drills and getting touches in, and then going to school and then coming home and training again. And it was just kind of like 2 days like that until I felt good enough to really go after it. And I went to the recruiting trip. I got recruited and I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I wanted. I'm going to train really hard this summer. Obviously don't expect to start as a freshman, but I'm going to get some time. I'm going to work hard, blah, blah, blah. So I go in and we had this thing. It was the 5-minute mile at midnight. So the first
What?
yeah, so NCAA, they let you start on a certain date. So like, let's say it's the 17th of August, instead of waiting till 9 a.m. to have, your first, because, preseason, they do 2-3 days.
Yeah.
So at 12 a.m. on the 17th, we'd run the
That's
5-minute mile and then wake up for 9 a.m. training. And we had 3 days. Horrible. But
I love that though. That's like hilarious. Like that's like the typical like let's go.
yeah, it was definitely pretty fun looking back. But I tied for first place, tied the captain. I got like a 4:56, and
Wow.
I thought that I said good first impression. I don't know what happened. To say that the coach and I didn't see eye to eye is an understatement. And so yeah, I mean, what happened was at first there's a lot of confusion because I'm good at taking criticism, especially in a game. Like, I don't know. One of my club coaches in high school is Bob Thomas. I know you know him, and I remember it was a college showcase tournament, and it was a winter game, and it was snowing, it was cold. We were in Virginia, and I started at holding mid, and beginning of the game, I gave the ball away like twice in 2 minutes, just horrible. And then the final straw was there's this 5'7" guy in the other team that he was the largest man. He was like 240 pounds. And he was, no, he was so fast. He was the fastest kid alive. He was faster than me. He was so quick. He was so fast. And he megged me and then blew past me. And Bob pulls me up and he grabs me by my jersey and he pulls me in. And he's yelling so hard, there's like spit in my face. He's like, you are sucking right now. This is the worst soccer I've ever seen. You are a horrible soccer player right now. What is wrong with you? And then he points at the bench. He's like, go sit down and figure it out. And he pushes me down and I sit there, and about 7 minutes later, he pulls me back up and he goes, you remember what I said? Yeah, he was like, I said, you're a good soccer player. Do you think you're a good soccer player? And I was like, yeah, I do. He was like, I said that you can play better than that. Do you think you can play better? And I was like, yeah, I do. He's like, okay, go back in there. And then I played a great game. And so I don't mind getting yelled at, but it was just a weird situation where no matter what I did, it wasn't right. And if I ever did do something right, like let's say I scored a goal in practice or I made a good through ball, it was only because somebody else did something wrong. And he'd always point it out. Pete only got that goal because you did that wrong. And if he hadn't done that, he wouldn't have been able to do that. And it just kind of built and built and built. And so it just started off as confusion and a lot of loss of confidence, because then he was just always getting on me in practice and would kind of pull me aside and just kind of beat me down. Just whisper in my ear, tell me like I was the worst player ever, I suck, or I'll never be able to do this, or I'll never be able to do that. And it kind of grew to the point where, he took a lot of chances to humiliate me, like leaving me off the away game roster. I go to class the next day and professors are like, hey, aren't you on the soccer team? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, don't they have an away game? I'm like, yeah, they do, but I'm still here. And at first I thought, like I was the problem and that I was just like a bad player. And yeah, I was really underperforming because I lost my confidence. But then I started having, the captains coming up to me and saying, hey, should be on the roster. You should be playing. And at one point, once my freshman year, once my sophomore year, they went and talked to the coach and were saying, hey, like we could use Pete on the field. And I just wasn't getting time even in practices, like not even chances to prove myself at all. And any chance I did get when I did prove myself, you know, I wouldn't get the credit. And it was just really hard. And I spiraled downward really quickly, where I started, all I did was train. I was training like 6 hours a day and I couldn't sleep. So I'd go out on the turf field at 2 a.m. and there's like a floodlight by the building, and like that combined with the moon was just like enough to get touches in. And the security guards hated me because they were constantly kicking me off the field, and was trying to stay like in the racquetball courts late at night and sneaking in buildings, getting in trouble. Just all I did was train to the point that I like trained myself into the hospital. I got so sick that I lost 12 pounds in like 3 days. Went to the hospital. I remember the coach calling me. My roommate was starting as a center back as a freshman. He got like rookie of the year. He was sick. And my coach, he didn't ask me how I was or anything. He just goes, I don't want you getting my players sick. Don't go near anybody. Okay. And so this kind of kept growing and kept getting worse and worse, you know, where I became obsessed with training. Like holidays and Christmas, we'd go to my aunt's house or something, and everybody's upstairs having appetizers, and I'm in the basement in this small area with 2 cones and a size 1 ball doing figure 8 drills for 2 hours. You know, I couldn't let myself not train like 4 hours a day because I just wanted to prove myself so bad. And it's kind of like your situation. It's like, well, what am I doing wrong? And I was trying to get in touch with assistant coaches, and they didn't really want to meet with me, and no one wanted to help me. And so it was just very frustrating. You know, trying to talk to the coach would get no feedback other than just really negative stuff. I mean, I started getting some time my sophomore year a little bit. But even then, when I was on the field, it was a nightmare. Actually, there's one game that finished and 2 guys on the other team came up to me. They go, "What'd you do, bro?" I said, what do you mean? They're like, "What'd you do to that man?" I was like, "Who?" They're like, "Your coach. He hates you." And I was just like, it's a mystery. I don't know. But yeah, it was just, you know, I could give a lot of stories about things that happened that really just kind of kept driving me down and kept like killing my confidence in the game, kept killing my love for the game, and came to the point that I wasn't even playing soccer because I liked it anymore. I was playing soccer to prove someone wrong. And it was just like a very unhealthy obsession, and it didn't seem like I could win no matter what I did. And so before I left, after preseason my junior year, I went from, you know, I was like second string target my sophomore year, and you know I'm not a target. I was trying to play outside back or center back, and he wouldn't let me. And I was like 5th string target, and I finally got a meeting with him, and I was like, "Well, what can I do?" And he just, "I don't know." And I was like, "Coach, I'm a 5th string target right now." I was like, "We have 2 goalies. I'd rather be 3rd string goalie because there's a higher chance of me moving up to getting playing time than there is for here." And then he basically told me, he goes, "You know, I don't care how hard you work. I don't care how good you get. You're not going to play. You're not going to step on my field." And that to me was kind of, you know, I had.
He said that you're not going to play on the team.
Yeah. And for 2 years, you know, like I said, at first I thought I was the problem. And then, you know, even my sophomore year, the kid that started over me, we were hanging out one weekend, and he pulled me aside. He goes, "Hey man, you know, I should be your backup." And I was like, "Oh, come on. Like, you know, you don't have to say that." He's like, "No, like in practice," he's like, "I watch you so that I can do my job better." And that's when stuff started to click, and it's like, okay, well, every practice he tells me I'm the worst player ever, but maybe I'm not, you know. And that's when I got even angrier, because I was like, well, then why am I not playing? And yeah, and so people have been telling me for a couple of years, like, hey, you should go somewhere else because you're nothing's working out for you, but I didn't want to quit. And I just saw leaving as quitting the whole time. And I was just like, well, I can't quit. I can't quit. It's such a big thing that my, dad instilled in me. He would have been fine if I left. I'm pretty sure he wanted me to too, but I just didn't want to let go. But after, I heard him say that, I went down in the locker room and I just laid on the floor and I just cried because I knew it was over. And, it's the only school I wanted to be at. The teammates were like my best friends in the entire world. And I was just absolutely gutted. And it just felt like everything I did was for nothing, like I never slept. Like my friends would be out somewhere doing something and like I trained, I got up early and I trained. I was training more than I should have. Every morning, like 5 a.m. racquetball courts. If I can't sleep, I'm out on the the turf at 2 a.m. I don't care if it's snowing. And it just felt like all of that was for nothing. I just felt like I lost. And so that's when I left the school. And probably like 2 weeks later is when I met you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a really hard time because I don't think I set my expectations too high, but you do have expectations like that. Like I said, it's the only college I wanted to go to, and all I wanted to do was play soccer there. I would have I would have done anything there. There's a story in high school, like Greek mythology, about Hercules, and he did something wrong just to prove himself. He has to do it was called like the 12 labors, and they're all like these impossible tasks that he was supposed to die in. And if someone was like, "Hey, like, yeah, you can do that, and you're probably gonna die, but if you do it, you can play," I would be like, "Sign me up." I would have done anything. So yeah, definitely felt crushed just after that entire experience. Just kind of just like running into a wall over and over again. Um, but I mean, I learned a lot from it. So it was just a really tough 2 years.
No, yeah, it's crazy that we've been through similar experiences, but and you kind of hinted at it as well, but like you never want to be the person that's like complaining about like playing time and the person that's like pestering the coach. So like my first thought and like a lot of now like looking back at my situation and looking back at your situation now as a coach, I'm looking at it and thinking like, what could I have done differently? What have you could have done? What could you have done differently?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same point, like if like if you go to a coach and the coach doesn't want anything to do with you, and that's difficult because like you want feedback. Like for me, like I would casually ask for feedback like a couple times a year at most. But like I never really stood up for myself and never really like argued until like I kind of like I waited too long, I feel like, to actually like say something when like you know I think that in like in your situation it's so difficult to like try and like look back and see what you could have done where you're training, other people are looking up to you, communicating doesn't work, and you kind of get to this point where, and we both mentioned as well, like we're not in the best like mental state
Yeah.
where like
Yeah.
it's like I feel you and I feel where you were at, especially where you were training to almost spite, like you had a vision of that person. And I remember too, like when I played at Stevenson, like I had a vision, like I wanted to prove them wrong more than I wanted to succeed. And I feel like once I actually like had some of that success, like I was able to reset my goals, but at the same point, like the fire wasn't that as intense. Like I wasn't in that bad mental place again. Several times it was like not the best too, but the fact that like it was a mixture of like wanting to prove someone wrong, not being in the best mental state, and then also just wanting something so badly and
Yeah.
having that passion. Like it was intense.
Mhm.
So I don't I don't blame you for it. It's almost not like giving up, but at the same point, you're like, I need a break. You
Yeah.
know, like I honestly think that, and I know that you credit like some of your like willingness to go play soccer to like having experiences of training together and doing that. But I think knowing the person that you are, I think you would have found one way or another to get back in the game somehow. It might not have been the same way in the same fashion. You know, maybe it's at an entirely different school, or maybe it's not even taking it as seriously as you eventually ended up doing. But, you know, I still think that there's like you take that time away. Sometimes you need to just take a step away and then come back to it.
Hmm.
Um, and for me, like that step away from the game was necessary at that point, because if I continued along that route, it wouldn't have been good. But you know, a lot of it comes down to like I know with you, you experienced a lot of injuries. I know that you had a lot of um, passion towards the sport. Not only in a, like I saw joy when you started training and you started receiving and started getting success, and you know you transferred. And you never want to like that's another thing, like I'm a coach, and like knowing that like transfer fever is like the biggest thing where like students are like transferring left and right the second they don't experience something. I would encourage people to stick with it. I think we both did stick with it for a while. Like I went through 3 seasons, you went through two going into your third, and it was like laboring even in your first season. It was laboring me even in my first. But you know, I think you want to encourage players to try and stick through it and try to find a solution. But at some point, like, I don't think you should ever like I think at some point there has to be that. All right, I need to at least find another option, or else I'm not going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like in our situation that was a similar situation in a way. But you know, between your injuries, I know we didn't even talk about that. That's something we can maybe save for another time. Between like, you know, just being away from the game to the abrupt end of your, well, the temporary end to your career that
Yeah.
happened maybe a few years back.
Yeah, we'll see.
Um, and like, I guess your recovery from then
Mhm.
are definitely topics I'd like to explore later on.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I was actually thinking of you. I kind of want to close with this. I was thinking of you just the other day. Um, so I sprained my ankle. Um, I sprained my ankle. I didn't think of you because of my injury. I sprained my ankle at softball practice the other day.
Mhm.
Mind you, I'm a coach of the softball team.
Mhm.
I just went the previous weekend playing like high level futsal all weekend and was fine, but I rolled my ankle like jogging after softball.
That's how it
Yeah.
works.
So I don't coaching somehow. So like it doesn't make sense, but I rolled it and like it like rolled completely over. Like it was like one was like, and I heard a pop. I heard a
Yeah.
couple pops. And my ankle right now is like black and blue. And I'm wearing a brace. And I was watching this video. I don't know why it came up. You know, YouTube suggested videos, and there was this documentary about these guys that do these ultra marathons that are, I guess, like 100 milers.
Mhm.
And there's this race called the Western States, and it's
Mhm.
like you run 100 miles, and I guess there's a story behind it how someone like traveled 100 miles and then they run this path, and some of it's through the mountains, and it's like through the woods and the snow, and these guys do it, and it takes them an incredibly long time to run 100 miles. But like I ran a marathon at 26 miles, and I broke my foot during it, and I was like, man, I can't imagine 100 miles. And I was thinking, I was like listening to it in the background while I was working, and like it was following these 5 guys that were like the top contenders to win it even before the race. And then I never actually made it all the way through, but I think I'm like 30 minutes away from finishing it. But it was interesting seeing seeing that endurance and that duration of withholding that pain and pushing through that pain, and like seeing the guys were like cramping and like just hurting so bad. There's no way a normal person who's in like even the best shape like can go through that without something that's like pushing them mentally, having that mental toughness. And I thought, I was like, man, if there's anyone that could probably do that, it's probably Pete.
Oh, thank you. I mean, that's what I want to get up to is doing like those ultras because I've ran like
Oh,
50Ks and stuff. Like I did that obstacle course race where I did like 35 or 40 and then so I definitely want to get into those hundreds someday. It looks fun.
oh my gosh. Yeah, I knew that was you. I was like, I knew it. Well, there's some guys that like there's one guy who was like he didn't have anyone like there for him. So he was like cooking up meals beforehand and like going to different checkpoints and like dropping off the meals like in like the woods, like underneath leaves. I was like, man, Pete does that. So Pete, if you ever run a 100 miler, like call me out and I'll be the one meeting you at the checkpoints. And
Oh, you'll be my pit crew?
I'll be part of your pit crew.
Are you sure you're not gonna be running with me though?
Oh, like maybe parts of it, maybe like
Yeah.
in like 2 mile sprints. But
Yeah.
well, it was funny because so I had the sprained ankle, right? And so I'm watching and listening to it. And yesterday I was like, I hadn't run in a while because of my ankle, or even before then because I'm just so busy and I can be in a lot better shape. But I hadn't been running. And I was like, I need to run today. And so I like strapped my ankle brace on. And I ran 5 miles. And I felt so good. I was like, man, that only 95 more to go before I can go compete with these guys. But no, I know I know that that's something that it requires such an insane level of mental toughness and endurance, not just the endurance of body, but the endurance of mind. So, I think with everything that we've been through, I think that's made us more like mentally tough and like
Absolutely.
to push through difficult times. But there's so many things that we can continue to talk about with this. I wanted to like at least like share our experiences that were kind of similar here today.
Mhm.
I'd love to have you back on, maybe even with Safe too, and we can share some
Yeah.
of our journey. I enjoy following Safe. Safe's kind of like, I'm on my way out of the game,
Mhm.
and he's on his way up.
Mhm.
Where like Safe, he plays in Germany and it's like experiencing not playing and like in between teams and like felt like where I was at. So like I
Yeah.
want the best for him and I try to share my advice with him, but we're in two different spots now. But
Mhm.
at some points along the way, there were connections.
Yeah, kind of like you
So
and me. Yeah, you know, 'cause
exactly.
yeah, I listened to I think it was what last week the one with him. That was really cool. Is he from like the Western PA area? His area
Yeah, he
code.
grew up in Pittsburgh.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, because I saw his number on the thing. I was like, it's a 412. I was like, I
yeah.
know that.
I'm sure you guys maybe know some of the same people. He yeah, he's a little bit younger than us, but he's a good player. He works hard. So um anyway, man, I appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah,
I'd
man,
love
I'd
to
love
have you
to.
back on again. I'll send you a message here in the next few days and see if I can get you on next week.
Let's do it, man. I'd love it. I really appreciate it. It was a good time just talking and sharing experiences. And yes, just if any,
Saying like
yeah.
just saw this good looking guy in the gym and wanted to come on up and say like, hey, you play college soccer? Let's go
Yeah.
train together.
Worked out, man. What is that? Almost that would be 7 years. Like, it's almost 7 years ago that happened.
It's crazy, dude. It's
Crazy,
crazy.
and we got to work together and everything too.
Yep.
That was a really good time. That was
Yeah.
as rough as a year of that was for us on one side. The other half of it was like all we did was train and then work together. It was
Yeah.
playing.
A lot of good came out of it, and
Absolutely.
I definitely I definitely want to continue just building our relationship in the future too. But man, let's continue this conversation. I hope you have a good rest of your night. I'll talk to you soon. All right, buddy.
You too, man. Thanks.